Hello, world, and welcome. I'm Eric Hansen from OTTX, and on behalf of the whole team, whether you're watching live or on demand, we're glad you're here, and we're super excited to get things kicked off with the OTT X BUZZ in this new live and on-demand vidcast. We invite leaders, experts, prognosticators, pontificators, and rabble-rousers of the streaming world to get together and share their thoughts about what's going on today, right now, in streaming. So without further ado, I am pleased to welcome Colin Dixon, founder and chief analyst of nScreenMedia, as this week's moderator.
Hey, Eric.
Intro our guests and get things started for us. Hi, Colin.
Thank you, Eric. Yes, this is as Eric says, this is something new for us. And basically what we're really doing here is gathering a bunch of people, experts in the industry. We're going to talk about the news. We're going to see where it goes and see where it takes us. And look, don't be shy. If you have a question, stick it in the Q&A window. I'll try and keep an eye out on the Q&A and maybe we can throw that into the conversation. But other than that, grab a coffee, grab a chair, and let's get talking.
Let's do. We'll see you in a little bit. Y'all have a good time.
Thank you very much. Right, so I'd like each of my panelists to join me. So we've got Dennis Dortch, who's co-founder and CEO of Black and Sexy TV. Dennis, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have Isabella Rafferty Zavala, founder and CEO of Canela Media. Isabella, welcome.
Thank you.
And finally, Mike Vorhaus, CEO of Vorhaus Advisors. Mike, in the Pac-Man land. That's a great retro background, Mike.
Universal.
Right, so as I said, we're going to talk about a bunch of stories. I'm going to start us off with I've been trying to figure this one out myself, so I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. So Wall Street Journal had a piece that was saying that Amazon is thinking about introducing an ad tier to the Prime Video service. And apparently it's going to have, they say it's going to have a light ad load. They say it's in response to advertisers that have been pushing to get inside of some of that premium industry, Marvelous Miss Maisel, etc. So this is where it's come from. They want to add advertising, but it's got me really confused because I'm not really sure how they're going to introduce it, and I don't know about you, but I already see ads with some of the content I watch through Prime Video. So I don't know what the heck's going on here. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I think fundamentally all premium content should offer itself in some sort of way in an ad-supported, reduced pay or no pay way. There's different, not windowing in the traditional sense of weeks and months, but windowing in the sense of segmentation. So I think it's smart. And, you know, when you have that kind of scale, right, advertising works best when you have the biggest scale possible, and Amazon's got that. So I don't know how you can ignore that kind of money.
Yeah, but how do you think they're going to actually introduce it, Mike? I mean, look, how many people pay for Prime? Almost nobody, right? Prime Video. We all pay for Prime. We all pay for the shipping. So, and we're all used to getting ad-free viewing when we watch the Prime Video, although, as I say, I'm personally very confused about which is Prime Video and which is freebie video these days. So how do you introduce that?
By the way, it's probably more like, I've got some data that's a year or two old, but it's probably more like 80%, 20% buy it for the Prime Video or buy just the Prime Video.
Okay.
And people, I mean, but it's, you know, universally. I'm assuming that the best way for them to do this is a high-end sort of ad. So video ads that are going to be presented between, probably not before, certainly not after, you know, kind of at logical moments, could be moments when you're interacting with the menu, but I'm assuming it's going to be like good looking videos and not like, you know, performance-based, you know, clickbait.
Okay. And Dennis, I assume that you're a Prime Video user. How do you feel about seeing ads in The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
That's my favorite show, by the way. Thank you for rolling that to me. And it's funny because I think Amazon is the only service that I think myself and my wife both have our own separate accounts, and we're paying for it twice. So in my head, when
You must be the only person in the universe doing that, Dennis.
I can't
We're all sharing it.
No, I pay for
No.
mine too,
Oh, you
separately.
do?
I agree. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
my
I don't want
God.
her shipping interfering with my shipping. You know, I like to have my own thing. But
You must not be
regardless,
I
married.
don't believe this. I've never
Yes,
had that
me
before.
too.
Oh, wow.
but here's what I would say. I would say this: when I first heard the story, and I'm listening to Mike talk about it, I'm like, okay, more money's good, but yes, I hear you, Colin. If I'm paying for it, I don't want to see ads, so I'm not sure how they're implementing it. And then the first time when I heard the story, I said, I didn't know no one didn't have Amazon Prime. So what's the point of this? I was like, are you trying to get more like users? Like we got them. Like was a big deal. So in my head, I said it felt more like I don't need this, but let's say, it's going to be a great thing for them. I felt the real play was, quite honestly, is to create a little bit of structure out of the chaos of streaming. If you have a lot of a volume of people on this platform, figure out a cable packaging for us so that we can just get everything on one place. That to me felt like a lot more of maybe it's a bigger lift, but something that I'm really interested in. I don't need ads if I already have Amazon. If you don't have Amazon Prime and you want to watch Amazon Prime stuff and get ads, I guess, but I just didn't think there was anybody that didn't have it, or at least access to it.
By the way, I think YouTube will do what you're suggesting. I think YouTube will be ultimately the aggregator for pay because they're just so far into that already.
Yeah, and they're already, sort of going down that path without question. So I thought about this and I thought, okay, there's three ways they can do this, right? They could just turn the ads on, and they introduce two levels of Prime. So there's a Prime where you get all the shipping and whatnot and ads with the video, and then there's a Prime where you don't get the ads with Prime Video. They could just turn on ads for everybody and then make you pay a premium specifically for ad-free viewing in Prime. Or they could break Prime Video out from Prime and only sell it separately now, and have an ad tier and a non-ad tier. So of those three, Isabel, which one do you think is the most appealing to you? Which would you pick? Which would you be willing to pay the upgrade for ad-free viewing for?
I have a better one. What if they give you free shipping with ads?
If they did what now?
What if they offer a tier where they give you see ads and you even get free shipping?
Okay.
So $0. They send you the packages for free to your house.
Holy man! So you're going for the telly model, the free telly that they're going to give you if you watch a ton of ads.
I watch your ad, send my packages for free home.
I love it.
Printing my boxes, your ads, and I don't want to pay a cent.
I love it. I hope they're listening. I'll take that deal.
Wouldn't that be an interesting deal? Obviously, they're not going to go with that model, but no, I do think they will have to break it, separate it. But I think we're thinking about not everybody has Prime. I think it's important to segment. So I do think a percentage of the population that doesn't have Prime will be interested in this tier model with ads. So yeah. I do think it's an interesting model. I also think it will provide a lot of scale for advertisers. So it makes sense. Everybody, I think when one starts, now everybody's going to do a tier of advertising. It makes sense. Disney, Netflix, Amazon. Who's next, right? We're all going to do it. So
yeah. So Mike, I pitched you three ways to pay. If the way I'm betting, the one I bet will happen is that Amazon will just introduce ads and then make you pay a premium to watch ad free. Let's say $5. Would you pay it?
$5 a month.
$5 a month.
That's $60 versus 130. I
Yeah.
wouldn't, but there's a population that definitely would. I think your first option, I thought, was the one least disruptive to the current stable.
So two levels of Prime.
Yeah, that's what I am assuming they're going to do. But the other thing is I mean, we're in a digital world, right? We've learned this 20 years ago. I assume they're going to test 2 or 3 approaches.
Yeah, I would bet they
They're
would.
not going to screw with any golden geese.
Yeah, I figure they can't take Prime Video out of Prime. That was the one that that's an option, but they just can't do that because I think I don't know about you, but I would seriously consider canceling Prime and just subscribing to Prime Video if that's what I wanted. What would you do, Dennis? Would you if they charged a higher price for ad-free viewing with a Prime membership, would you pay that price and stick with the shipping and everything?
Well, I'm talking as Dennis, not as the owner of Black and Sexy looking to get on Prime or Amazon. But what I will say is I would not pay additional. No, I think anything that is changed should be additive. It shouldn't be adding a cost to me of something that I'm already getting. And then I'm have to pay more to get back to where I was before.
Yeah.
I'm really in a place where, if I was them, or my approach is just how can you add value, not, do the switcheroo. I don't really believe in that.
Yeah. I wonder how Amazon Channels partners feel about this. Folks like Paramount Plus, and I don't know, is Black and Sexy sold through Amazon as well?
Not at the moment, but we'll be careful what we say.
Yeah. So
Hey, 1 second.
Yeah, go ahead.
I looked up membership. I do an annual study every year. So this is from November. 58% of adults 18 and older in the US are members of Prime, and 42% are not. Bigger than I thought.
It's shocking. I was shocked.
I didn't, but we live in our bubble.
Yeah.
Yes, we do.
So let me come back to that question, and then maybe we'll move on to our next topic. I really do wonder how this is going to affect those people that are Prime partners. Does it affect them? Like if you were being sold through Amazon Channels, do you think this impacts you at all, or it doesn't really impact you? Would you consider maybe having an ad-supported tier sold through Prime as well that maybe could just get bundled in? Does it affect you?
It's an advertising opportunity for the merchants.
Yeah, definitely,
and therefore a stickiness.
Yeah. Dennis, if you were sold through Prime Channels, do you think this impacts you in any way?
My first thought, if you're validating this space, and you're getting people primed, no pun intended, to watch ads within the environment, it's not going to hurt. It's actually going to help. And if we're running an ad-supported channel, I believe it's just part of the same space, and it's just going to validate it.
Okay. All right. Very good. So, unless any of you have got any other comments on this, I don't see any questions popping up in the Q&A. So why don't we move on to our next topic? And I can tell you, I've been at a bunch of conferences just recently. I'm at one actually. I'm in Denver at Stream TV right now. Well, not right now. I'm in a different location. But one of the hottest topics, not the hottest topic, but one of the hottest topics is AI. And there was a really interesting piece because the producer of Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker, he tried using ChatGPT to get the darn thing to write him a script for Black Mirror. And his assessment was not very flattering. He basically said that it was, an expletive, and it was really just repeating other stuff that had been done before. In fact, he likened it to, he must be British because he likened it to an impressionist called Mike Yarwood, who, when you've got grey hairs like me, you would remember him. But it's kind of like Dana Carvey. Dana Carvey could emulate everybody. He likened it to that. So I'm just wondering, how are you guys thinking about using AI today? And under what circumstances do you think it can contribute to the creator process? So why don't we start with if and how you're using it today? Are any of you actually using it? Isabel?
I'm using it. I think creative is the word that I'm a little conflicted. I don't know if I can use it in that bracket of creativity, because I think creativity is very tied to human. However, I will tie more ChatGPT to operational, to be able to get things done quicker and more. So in the operational side, I see a lot of opportunities. I think creativity, I will separate a little bit more in a bucket. I'm not saying there's not opportunities there. There's opportunities, but there's a few things that we are experimenting in the side of operational. For scheduling fast channels, I think it's interesting in our industry. We're starting to do some testing from just organizing schedules for fast channels from titles, organizational. We're doing some testing with ChatGPT on how we organize those titles from titles. So you can put a whole list of titles that you want to put in a fast channel. You can put in ChatGPT and say, suggest a title for this sequence of movies, and it can come up with a title. So,
oh, really?
Yeah. So we've been playing with that a little bit. It's not down to a science, but there's interesting applications, I think, for the OTT space. Creative. So, for example, not creativity, but operational size. For the platforms in OTT, you can create a lot of posters. So as we have to create multiple posters for a movie, we can go and say, create multiple posters for this specific movie for all these platforms. So for operational aspects, it really helps reduce time, things that take a lot of time. So we're working a lot of those things. Also for branded content, like descriptions for clients, metadata in the platform. So things like that, we are working a lot and start experimenting with ChatGPT. So we're just starting to work with it. I personally, I think it's a very interesting technology. But I think it's important to separate the creativity and the value of the human mind from a robot. I think when I see everything that's going with the writers and the value and the creativity a human brain brings, you cannot compare it to a robot. The more you play with ChatGPT, you will start seeing the limitations on it. And no, it's not going to run you an award-winning script, and it's not going to bring that element and that engagement that a writer can bring you in a script. So there is very serious limitations. The more you start playing and working with it, that you realize, but I think it's a very interesting tool that can be very helpful for organizations.
It's interesting that you mentioned programming of fast channels, because that's actually come up at the conference quite a lot, that people are beginning to experiment with it in doing that. And I actually know a couple of companies that are actually really using it in deployments, like Zone TV, for example, is using that to help program the channels, but not divorced from human interaction. There is also humans there supervising. Mike, I saw you nodding your head.
Yeah, I'm a fanboy. I mean, let's just declare it outright. I likened this in an interview with Strauss Zelnick at GamesBeat to being somewhere between broadband and electricity in importance. And I don't think we're going to see that in 2 to 5 years, but I think 10 years from now, it's definitely as important as broadband. That I'm 100% sure of. So I'm on the board of a bunch of companies that are using it. So some game guys are just making assets, right? That's no big surprise. Midjourney, in many cases. I mean, I don't think we should be talking about just the ChatGPT version of this type of tool. One of the companies I'm on the board of, the ad tech company I'm on the board of, they're using it to actually reorganize, reanalyze data. So they're saying, and this is Isabel was touching on this. So here's a data set. How should we be looking at it? Which I think is absolutely huge. But let me also share with you a story. The CEO of a startup company had like a problem at the company that had to share with everybody. And he just talked into ChatGPT, described the situation, And I am telling you, the memo that ChatGPT pushed out literally did not need a single edit. They hit on all, they had the facts, and then they hit on all the right beats. We're going to keep you informed. We're going to be transparent. Business as usual. The company's going to continue to do well. And we didn't tell it to say any of that.
Wow. So Dennis, what do you think? I mean, is this something that you're looking at, you're already using in your business? Have you tried any creative things like Isabel has?
I don't know if Isabel says she's doing creative things, but I will piggyback on, I haven't done anything, but I have been considering, and for metadata for sure, because that's the grind no one wants to do, so that's something that is on our mind. But I will say in the creative, because I lean more creative, especially in our company, we're more original content driven. It's definitely a sticky thing. I won't say I don't believe in it, but when I think of this, here's what's really happening. I think we're talking about it all the time, especially as writers, and I'm a writer myself and an active member of the WGA. So a lot of writers are, upset we're talking, but I kind of go, majority of writing, especially on TV, is really hacked to begin with. It's just taking other people's ideas, something you've heard in your life, and you're really regurgitating in a way. AI just does it faster. So AI is just a better hacker. That's just all it really is. Then there's that 20-30% of really amazing writing that comes from human experiences, that comes from a perspective that a computer currently can't do. Do I think they're going to get there? Yes, I believe so. But currently, right now, I know, and I've heard all of the studios have tried it. They've all tried it and they figured it out. And maybe, a procedural, it gets close. The other people, the other kind of, more stronger sort of nuance successions, probably not. But I just don't think that when I think about writing, I think it's just stepping up our game. And I think the human touch, whether like my kids are artists, whether it's visual arts, whether it's writing, I think that's going to become a lot more expensive, and are we all going to have jobs? Probably not if you're trying to do that, but I think it's going to be a little bit more elevated in a way, and the AI is just going to be pretty standard generic, and it's going to revamp what's going to happen, I think, in creativity and writing again. We don't really know where it's going, but I don't think we're doing anything different. I just think people are going to be left out of a job when it gets to that level, and that's the only concern I have right now. So I'm not touching it personally because it just doesn't, it's, the human part of our company is really what drives us. It doesn't make any sense to mess with that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people share your concern. One of the interesting things that I've seen a couple of interesting use cases at, most recently at NAB. One company was using it because they said that for a certain type of programming, it's very easy to use or apply AI. And they said, the sort of thing you see on CNN where they're sort of looking at Richard Pryor's life in comedy or something like that, where really what you're doing is you're taking a bunch of clips of Richard Pryor and you're stringing them together in a logical order to create a show. And they were sort of suggesting that you could have AI build 10, 20 scripts of clips and then have a human review it, pick the best one, provide the glue between the scripts, and bam, you've got a show. And that sounded pretty reasonable to me. And another way, and I think one of the biggest wins that I see, and maybe Mike, you can comment on this. The most immediate win I see for companies, media companies, is using AI to really deepen the metadata that you have available in your content. And the reason this is so important is because voice technology is being used increasingly. And when you look at what streaming companies are doing, I'm sure, Isabel, you're doing this as well. We're looking at ways of tapping into people's moods and less tangible things to be better at recommending things at the right time in the right place, etc. And by enhancing the metadata, AI seems to be pretty good at spotting moods now in scenes. So that seems to me like an immediate big win. Mike, would you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So detection of emotion basically is like the Turing test on steroids. So first you got to convince people you sound like a human, and then you got to be able to have a conversation that is foggy because it involves emotion, it involves alternative use of words. I actually think about this when I say something, but he's killing it. I wonder if that means the same thing when I'm writing to a guy in Brazil. So I'll go even further on this. And I'm not normally this way. I know a guy in Israel, he has a 10-year plan that I don't think he's got sufficient funding, but he actually sees where you end up with something that's very close to a human in VR for you, a human companion.
Wow.
So what
But
was
I
that
think
movie?
going Colin, to your point of, I think of AI, which I think is interesting with emotion, ties back to advertising with metadata too. I think tying down to emotions is going to be very interesting, especially for us in OTT. The more that we can tie to emotions, the better we can also serve advertising in streaming, and the more effective those campaigns can be. So AI could be also very powerful in the advertising aspect in streaming, because we're going to be able to tie advertising based on those emotions people are feeling at the moment watching that content. So if you're selling antidepressants, right, you want to make sure what is the right moment to sell that advertisement. Or so there's emotions are very key also in the type of yeah.
That's such a great point, Isabel. And you actually reminded me of something that came up at a conference last week. I didn't know this, but typically when the creative group of the advertiser makes an ad, they don't just make one ad, they make like 10 or 20 different versions of this ad. So this is great for two reasons. Reason number one is if they were able to leverage these different versions of the ad, maybe that would cure our problem with repeats, right? That we see the same ad each time. Actually, what we'd end up doing is we end up seeing a slightly different version of the ad each time, which could be interesting. But even more interesting is your point. Now you can create ads with different feelings, different tones, different emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can tap into the emotion of the viewer somehow, now we can deliver a really emotionally compelling advertising and get better outcomes for the advertiser.
And customizable and very quickly customizable, right? Hey, Isabel, you could even have your name. Hey, Isabel, where you're a little bit sad. What if you have a little bit of ice cream? I don't know. It can get really tricky very quickly, but
This is not scary to anybody else here because
I don't know. I mean,
am I wearing my Apple Vision goggles with it, and that's a good use case for
well,
it.
we're going to get to Apple Vision in just a moment. But
some people were afraid of radio.
Afraid of radio?
If you go back and read, particularly in some of the more Protestant states, people were saying, what's going to be read to our family? How's this going to affect us? So there's a lot of controversy, probably more controversy on radio than TV. I mean, and it's legitimate. It's legitimate to talk about it and think about it. But
you mean how it influences? You mean back in the day, or talking about right now? The influence?
Well, yeah, I'm saying, in other words, when you said, I agree with you, that's worth worrying about.
Oh, I see.
Just saying in context, technology advances, media advances have tended to cause that reaction. And on one level, it's legitimate, but you don't want to avoid all the utility.
Yeah. Thank you, Henry Wong. Great question. I should have remembered to ask this, but I've got Henry, smart people like Henry, to remind me. He asks, how do you handle the infringement with AI? I remember there was that great piece, I think it was in the Wall Street Journal, it was on The Verge, about AI Drake, and he really dug through the implications of, is this copying? Is it fair use? How do we deal with this?
You know what? Always talking about this. I'm surprised that all the content creators in the major entertainment industry hasn't already got ahead of this, because it's like I would protect our moat and I would protect our industry, because you have 1 million, 2, 5, 20 million people, content creators. You're going to have these tools at some point, very high powered, and they're going to be fed on all the content that's been made, and they're going to be able to do it in a way that's going to be faster and more crowdsourced than, us, medium-sized, big-size content creators, platforms, studios could do. So I think it's important to do it, to really just cut the cord, even though it may benefit us in some way. I think it's really going to hurt us in the end. And so infringement, I know right now copyright it doesn't really recognize it if it's not human created, but our stuff should be all pulled out of that if you don't want people to compete with us. That's how I look at it.
Yeah. I know personally, when I thought about exactly this issue, I write for a living, and Mike does too. I put my stuff out there for free. I often provide original opinions and conclusions, and I do a lot of research, and Mike does too. Well, what happens if an AI reads that and a whole bunch of others and starts repeating that without crediting us? I'm not sure I'm happy about that. Are you happy about that, Mike? I know I'm sure I'm not.
Look, if your business model is to get known and build your brand and whatnot, it's good. If your business model is to actually make money on your content, then it's bad. I don't mean to be snarky, but part of the answer to your question, I'm afraid, is going to be more lawyers.
Yeah. And on that cheery note, maybe we should move on to our last topic before I ask you about what's really resonated with you in the news. And how could we not talk about Apple Vision Pro? I have seen many pieces waxing rhapsodic about the coming revolution that Apple Vision Pro is heralding in the way we interact with computers and with internet content and with content in general. If you haven't had a chance to go to Apple's website and look at their video talking about the Vision Pro, you should. It's unicorns and rainbow. It's going to be a wonderful world with Apple Vision Pro, but not everybody was impressed. Daniel Frankel wrote a very scathing article about this just being another money machine for Apple, having us locked in their world. I'm really interested in your view of this product. So who wants to pitch in first with this? Mike, I'm going to ask you.
Could it really be as bad as everybody's saying? I mean, don't you kind of want to? Here's what I really think. What I really think, and I think we see this throughout technology, is this is not the first one, right? They made a couple versions in-house, and now it's going to iterate and it's going to get better. And by the way, and I've done a lot of testing on VR, the weight of the device is essential. It's interesting. You just kind of took your glasses off for a second. For some moments during the day, these are too heavy.
Yep.
And it's tethered. Didn't I see that it's tethered?
No, I think so. So it sort of sits, for those of you that haven't seen it, it sits around your face. Got a hook on the back that sits supposedly comfortably on the back, on the back of your head, and it has cups that sit over your ears. And the battery is what you're thinking about as being tethered. There's a cord that attaches the battery, which sits in your back pocket if you're walking around, which I looked at that and I thought, well, there's an upgrade that everybody's going to want to pay Apple a bunch of money for, right? Extra battery power. Anyway, so that's the device. Isabel, Dennis, have you had a chance to look at this thing? Are you?
I haven't seen it in person, but I mean, what excites me is I have the Meta one.
Yep,
and I'm
me
not
too.
a coordinated person, and I feel like the hand movement thing was always very complicated for me. It sounds silly, but I could never figure out grabbing the hands and doing so. Not having to have the remotes in your hands, for me, that's a big thing. Just not having to have the remotes, the hand remotes. So that for me is a win piece. I'm not a heavy user of VR equipment yet.
Yeah.
So,
Disney Plus is all in. Iger loves it. He's going to be partnering with Apple on this. Certainly in the demo, the way they're talking about it being used to show video is basically you can throw away your TV if you're using this thing. It will position you can position the video screen anywhere in your environment. It sits in your environment. So it has a shadow on your floor. And I'm guessing if somebody else is watching a Vision Pro, you can share that screen, although they didn't show that. That would be important. Dennis, are you rushing out to the Apple store to put down your $3,500 for this device?
Well, I'm biased. I am an Apple stan, and I never count them out. And I will say, I did buy the Oculus a year or 2 Christmases ago for this house full of kids, and we haven't used it past Christmas. So we love VR stuff when we go out, but I'm interested in this simply because I think when I first saw it, I didn't understand what was so different until I heard the word spatial computer. And then I was like, oh, it's a computer. I get it now. So I'm very interested in getting it. Number one, because I trust Apple. I'm a brand, I'm a stan, and they were about experiences. And I think it's more about the experience and you feel cool doing it more. The utility is definitely going to be part of it, but I think that's what's going to make me want to have it as a first adopter.
Yeah. How do you feel about not having it not really be a mobile product? You can't fold it up and put it in your pocket and go.
I got 2 phones, man. I'm okay. I'm fine. I mean, you know what? It's going to get better. You're right. The first iPhone was a brick. You know what I mean? So, now they're getting bigger, but they got thinner. So I don't think it's an issue on the first iteration. To me, I love where we're going, and I'm there for the ride. So that's how I say it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that really I find quite compelling about certainly the demo. Obviously, we'd have to see this in how it's actually implemented. With the Oculus, it doesn't allow you to sort of place everything in your space. You're in a virtual space. And I think the AR component is incredibly important because it means you're not cut off from the world. You're still in the world. So you can get up and walk around while you're using the device because you're not going to walk into a table. So that I think is very important, and hopefully will help us deal with one of the problems that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is this disorientation you get in the virtual world. That I'm very hopeful that you won't get it using this device. So that's one thing I really like a lot. I think we have a long way to go to figure out the right uses for it. But the thing that really I love about this is that I think it is going to help push the industry forward. So a lot of people are going to try a bunch of stuff with this device, and Apple will help us establish some of the metaphors, and the people designing for it will help us establish some of the metaphors that will work in this mixed reality AR space that they're playing in. So that's what got me excited. What doesn't is, I'm still wearing this huge, great thing on my face. Like you, Isabel, I'm not sure about the hand gesture thing. I don't know if I'm going to grok that, if that's going to work for me. But, is it an improvement on those? I think those are the things that I see that are substantially different from the Oculus. But this thing about watching a 2D video on this thing, I just don't want to have that on my face. I think I'd rather look at a TV or a monitor.
Are you thinking like the Elon Musk little sort of brain little thing? You want that chip?
Oh my goodness, don't go there.
It might be more comfortable. So
it would. Yeah, Mike, yeah, go ahead.
In 50 years, there will not be monitors.
I agree.
It'll all be pushed into your brain. You'll control it. It's all chemistry. It's just like contact lenses. It's all chemistry and physics.
Well, wait a minute. In my brain, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I do think the
TV is going into your brain.
I do think in maybe 10 to 15 years, it will be this. It will be these. It'll be like this, which is a much easier form factor for all of us to deal with. I'm firmly convinced in 15 years I won't need a smartphone. That it'll be here. It'll be in these.
or contact lenses.
Maybe contact lenses, but I don't know about you, but I don't want to be putting contact lenses in.
No, but not everybody wants to wear glasses. You and I like
This is also
you
true.
guys both have contacts in, I bet.
Yeah.
No, but have you seen that Black Mirror? Speaking of Black Mirror, that Black Mirror episode where we recorded everything in your brain, and then you can tap into your partner's stuff, and they got in trouble seeing everything they're doing. You're not a fan of Black Mirror? Okay. Yeah.
Now you mention this, I gotta see this episode. I haven't watched that episode.
First season, if you're looking for it, that show is amazing. Because I mean, honestly, when we read that article about Black Mirror, we knew it was really to tell you Black Mirror's coming. That's the point of the article, right? But I would rather, I think it would have been more impactful if it would have talked about a coming episode of AI or something, some type of technology, which is the point of the show, being used. Very similar to, I think I was just reading about that it was a long time ago, but I missed it. Whereas like the AI Bing thing was telling a test user to leave their wife. I'm like, that would have been a great thing as a story in Black Mirror. I'd be like, I'm going to watch this thing. So yeah. Black Mirror is great because it really takes about the pearls of technology and where we're going with it in the near future. It's not even that far away. Even those little robot dogs, there was one that had guns on them and they were guarding everything. So the guards would never get tired and they would chase you down and kill you. So I'm sorry for making it so morbid.
You've convinced me I need to be watching Black Mirror.
So I need to be in PR. Look at that.
You do. Anyway. All right. So in the last couple of minutes here, I'm really interested. I've talked about a few stories that really caught my eye in the last few weeks. I'm interested in one story that's caught your eye that we haven't talked about already. So why don't we start with you, Mike? Give us in 45 seconds or so a story that you saw that really spoke to you in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Well, sadly, I have become addicted to war coverage, which maybe does not fit in this category. Though I will tell you, it was interesting that I heard some people in the Ukraine saying something that I've heard people in Israel saying, which is without minimizing war, many people have gone outside their apartments to watch the interceptors intercept the missiles because it's better than any 4th of July. I will say on a massive level, I think voice is where it's all going to be about, much more than hand. I mean, every time I see anything about voice, there's a voice game company that's named Zavala is its name, that's just announced some new things they're doing. So I'm really, and I'm not involved, I don't have any ownership in Volley. I'm really gung-ho about everything I read about voice.
Yeah, very good. Isabel, what story resonated with you in the last few weeks?
I'm going to do a little plugging for the industry. So I saw that there is an independent streaming association getting together. So I thought that was very interesting. So smaller streamers are getting together and putting together an association. So I thought that was great. Kind of putting together forces on the OTT movement to put together a voice and get together. So that,
funnily enough, I was really pumped about this too. I am really keen for this to do great things. I actually talked to Damien Pelicioni, who's the head of Reverie, yesterday, just about this. I'm going to interview him about the alliance. I think it's really important. And I really want to make sure that you smaller providers get a fair deal in advertising and in the industry from as good a deal as the bigger guys are getting. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that. I think that was really important too. Dennis?
This has been an unfolding story for a while about Paramount unloading BET onto a buyer that's Black owned. And then so it came up on Twitter and then it's been a rumor and then it's been taken back and put it up that Tyler Perry has captured that deal. So when I think about that, that's the person that I wanted to have it anyways, because he's already entrenched. And I think a lot of people that are looking, and like, obviously I'm more sort of original content oriented. A lot of people that are looking to acquire and buy BET are not really content creators, majority, or especially scripted, which is very difficult. And so no matter what your opinion is on Tyler Perry, he knows how to bang out a lot of shows, a lot of content, and make things that resonate and have a hit. And I think that's what BET needs, unfortunately. If you start with someone who actually is starting from scratch or trying to figure it out, it's an uphill battle. And I think it's just in the wrong hands. So if that's true with the rumors that he really secured it, I was all for it.
Great. Yep. I hope it falls into friendly hands as well. An important resource. Well, everybody, thank you so much for your opinions. Thank you for the questions and for listening in. Isabel, Dennis, Mike, great comments, great discussion. I really enjoyed this, and man, I'm ready to get down and do this another time. This has been great. So Eric, we're going to hand it back to you.
Hey, thanks a lot. Thanks everyone. This was really fun. I hope you had a good time with it. It looked like it covered a lot of ground. I learned a new phrase, Colin. Waxing rhapsodic. I'm going to try to get that into my vocabulary.
Well, I'm glad I could help you expand your vocabulary, Eric.
I guess we learned there's going to be more lawyers. That's probably not a surprise to anybody. Love the conversation about AI as well. Something to think about. Dennis, I liked your comments about it elevating our game. I write music and produce music and have experimented with AI a little bit, and I've always felt like, this isn't really going anywhere. And someday it will, but I do think eventually maybe it really will, and then the kind of music I make will be popular because no machine's ever going to make music like that. But I think that's an important point. It creates space for more innovation by taking some of the content that is maybe more mundane out of content that we all need to that gets created. So
yeah,
fun. Yep. I'd like to do this as Colin mentioned. I hope you'll stick around. We'd love to have you back on and do this again. Thanks for being a part of our inaugural episode. So once again, Colin, Dennis, Isabel, Mike, thanks for joining us today. And super entertaining and illuminating. It was great to have you on. We'll be back again for another edition of The Buzz next month on July 12th. So hope you join us then. Invite your friends, your colleagues as well if you enjoyed it. Bring some friends with you. It's also going to be available on demand. So I think it's a great opportunity to get the word out. A quick note to remind everyone of some upcoming events and activities that we're going to be doing for OTTX members and the OTTX community. We're going to be in Los Angeles for the Los Angeles Roundtable Discussion Session on June 29th. If you've attended these in the past, super valuable way to meet with executive experts, leaders, colleagues, peers across the ecosystem, share your thoughts and ideas about issues facing your business, and have a real good time. We're going to serve everybody some pizza too, as we always do. So you'll want to be there for that if you can make it. We're also back at Skirball Center on August 30th through the 31st for our annual flagship conference. The OTTX Summit includes 2 days of conference programming, workshops, breakouts, exhibitor booths, one-on-one business meetings, the Heroes of OTTX Awards, industry cocktail parties, and so much more. You're going to want to be there and be part of the inside track in the OTT ecosystem. You can find out about these and other events on our website at ottx.org through the link that Jose has posted into the chat window just now. So that concludes today's episode of the OTT X Buzz. Thanks everybody for being here, and we're looking forward to our next episode.
Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us. All right.
Bye.
Bye.